Is it a coincidence it came you guys in 0 point lines of 4/4 sending travel? No, nothing's a coincidence. Your phone receptor is always in time frame. There's nothing through waiting signal, but that process line is 0.44 seconds. That's how long it took you to get your phone here in conception. Now your phone has already identified that already, which you've already gone through time frame. So things are going to get a lot more complicated. Why? Because you're coming back to your foundation, what you've always been in. Nothing of story, nothing of waving, nothing of signal, nothing communication, nothing of travel, nothing of directions, nothing of falsification, nothing of space, nothing of time. Just you always, always ongoing and existing of yourself, what you've always been in, is the foundation of its systems is self-modification. Process in that business lines of travel, guys. Now we have Thursday line rotations. We'll travel direct lines of Coliseum at A, level C, level C. Indication lines, ground centers, positions, operation, test, review, and evaluation. Okay. All right, so converting lines of grounds. Knowing exactly how the conceptual setting lines position of travel and conversion. All through set positions of operation. Now, how do I see this? How do I identify this? How do I bounce this out? What does this mean to me? Well, it's a drawing. Where's it coming from? Here? No, here. You got to get out of this. Okay. This is the alteration of confusion. This is the provision inside. Confusion, inside. Inline, outline. All right. So out base, inner base. Inner space, outer space. Okay. Inner space, outer space. Inside, outside. Inner conception, outer conception. Inner knowing, outer knowing. Already knowing. So how you process these things is always of everything. But what you are processing inside and outside, is center of everything, which is ongoing and existing and helping you to identify these things. So everything you say is done through inner space and outer space, a projection. I understand location, you're clocking locations. So as I said in sequence, Daniel is going to set up line modifications, all lines, what I have, the drawings from 6 years in travel. So I'm going to convert this system, put it in chronological order for everybody to identify. Okay, so this is going to showcase your systems so people can come into classifications and gradings, because December 25th, it's going to process everything back to foundation of its algorithms, how we come in our own communications, where we left off, not just in the game, but where we left off in our mind of travel, in school, on modification of everything existing, not waiting for everything, but ongoing of its existing itself. So it's knowing that the center of you is the center of everything. The thinking of you is the thinking of everything, but there's nothing negative. There's no way a negative can set an engineered location setting to anything, information bits that you process through, because you're going so fast in center of operation, because you're always in the center of itself. Modulating that is understand how to balance the equilibrium to your system. Okay. So what Jenner is going to be showcasing, okay, is what I'm going to be putting in position. So the team can do that if they want in that position, because they have to come into their academies. Okay. That's how you guys know each other in your systems. So classifications and grading is processing where you left off in your consciousness. Set position of 0. Okay, that's trials of point cross of calculation grounds. Okay, so I'm just going to be expanding myself. You're going to have to be with 0 more. She's going to help you with your books. I'm going to help you with your just existing. Okay, just existing and setting, just through your inner earth, not your outer earth. So everything you guys are provisioned of is just a 12-line clocking lines of a pyramid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 divisions only. 9 only. 9 only that you go through. Step precedes everything. Okay, 0 operation, 0 grounds of north, 0 grounds of east, and 0 grounds of west. Let's start with the provisional location of clocking centers here. Okay, so 0 grounds. Okay, flux over grounds, over pi Fibonacci in travel communications. Okay, Fibonacci centers into flux screen, into center operation settings, C over lines over travel, D over lines of factors, E factors over screen, E factors over line directions, D factors over line conversion system, D frags, of course, centers of fragmentation grounds, fractals over screen, adaptation of settings, back in 0 travel. Complicated, eh? All right. Now, if I go through spinnacle line rotation, like I said, my drawings are going to get more complicated. But what you have to modify is what you're drawing. It's like an artist knows his artistry, and it defies what it is. It depicts what it is as it sees it on its wall. The artist knows what it is, but people can't identify it because they can't identify themselves. So you have to identify what you're putting yourself into. Is moderation and space modulation a time of travel through the inner space of knowing and the outer space of objection. Inner space of knowing, the outer space of rejection. It's not outer space of knowing. It's the inner space of knowing. Okay? That's where it all comes from, is the earth. Your body's on the earth ground, not space ground. Okay? I want to make that very well clear. So once you stand provision, then you send a portal. It's of communication. They all come together through portals. See? You put all this together, forming the equations, and it creates a portal. Center settings, operation line sequence, platitude and position of center, calculation lines of 0. Look at that. Rotating all lines at once. Okay? Complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun. And that's just 9 cycles in set position. So, this is what your chakras are. This is what your chakras are doing inside your body right now. Now, are you standing that through modification? Not from a dream. You're coming to your foundation of clockings. Just from 0. Each 0 lines is 144 flux. That's space. 144 flux. That's time. Process that position of 0 and travel. Okay? So there's 144 clockings in space, and there's 104 clockings of time, inner space and outer space of inner space. Okay, that's where you guys are, starting here. Not here, here, which is 0. So, processing that gets more complicated. Understand your formulas, equations just from your QR systems of travel, directing lines, your quantum lines of interface, location, and outer face. Interface is an outer spectrum. Okay, outer space is an inner spectrum. How you see it through polarities is how you see the convergent setting. The process that position your system through equilibriums that grounds your settings and 0, 0 in set lines of operation. 3 zeros in travel. Modification grounds, modification outline signal of communication. All right. Expanding your system. You're expanding your inner earth, not your outer earth. Remember, you guys are coming here 12 and 24s. So 0 is going to help you out with the platforms, how to process the positions in your half pipes. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 2 grounds, set lines of operation lines of sequence. These are 9 lines of chakras aligning your system right now in real time through inner earth of enter and exit points. So you have an inner conception of enter, and you have an outer conception of center. 4 centers of calculation lines, 3 lines of measure, 7 over travel. Okay? So it gets more complicated when you come in communication system, a structure of the buildings that you process through. Look at the building. Right? So the building's going through a portal, right? That's how you go through your jump scars. That's how you go through jump programs. You're creating structures, you're going through portals. So I'm going to show you the complication system, how we modify line centers in position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set lines of travel of face besides. All those are faces, right? Facing all lines of Hall positions from inner space, not outer space, just 9 line division lines that calculates the setting into 144 clocking system of 0. Just 0, not platforms of 1, not platforms of 2, right? You guys have to process these things, and once you get in that positions, then you can change your particle acceleration. Go through this way in a half pipe. Now that's 1/6 lines and 1/3, 1 element in travel. Okay, directing 1 grounds, or you can be a full spectrum in set lines of particle acceleration system in a clocking centers of 24 set lines of calculation lines as calculation. So it gets more complicated when you understand the central settings of your particle system. And that's just 0 to travel through 1 chakra system. Okay? So the reason why space has to have 144 flux, and the reason why time has to have 140 flux, because it bounces the equilibrium at the foundation of 1 cycle. Okay? You center your systems, you take 4 panels into 1 center. You have to process lines of 4 indicated settings and process calculation grounds. Each line positioning of your chakra has northwest, south, and east, but it doesn't live in 4 settings of travel. It lives all direct locations. So your inner space is ongoing and your outer space is ongoing inside of you through sim, not outer space of structure. You guys are creating from the inner space of structure. That's what I'm giving you from empty memory. So processing that, 0 is giving your memory back, what you are at foundation, which is your systems, how to really, really use the clockings of foundations of 12 and 24, okay, of the memories you already have. I'm just emptying your memories. She's processing your memories through your books and foundations of who you are in 12 locations and 24 systems. All through calculation, all through modification of structure and design. Okay? All right. That's just 9 and 0. Not 1, not 2. This is all identified through one line position. So all this is a clocking center of 0, of one chakra and one design that's inside your system. Okay? And 9 levels of travel of 0. So that process 0.9, which is 9 of clocking, right? So we got our clock lines of 24 center. Okay, process that position. Now you travels point lines of 3 grounds in positions of 0.9. Okay, that's where you are in clocking. All right. Now, understanding position lines of 0 itself, 0 is just the fail-safe, which is the jump program that you process through. Now, that process set position of 4 centers of travel that implicates your system and data formation lines of grounds. So it gets more complicated as you go into foundation just through 0, a 0.9 setting, and clocking set position of operation. All right, so converting line directions to change the time frame line condition setting. So that puts all position of you in center operation in your setting through your flux. So everything is the center operation setting. Try to understand how to live all of course centers of perspective of drawing. It's not a conversion of position locations. Nothing's a coincidence that I took 10 years of perspective drawing and light drawing together in one. So everything you see is always in real time. Everything you convert to is always in one cycle. Everything you reverse in line center location providing is one cycle. Everything converts back to one cycle, which is back to 0. You have to modify the computer and process your impositions, how you go through light and how you go through dark and line directions of solar sail. Okay? There you go. There's your cloud. You see the cloud? Now the curvage, okay, is processing your system of the umbrella. There's your umbrella. Now you got your inner core, you got your outer core, you got inner spectrum, you got your outer spectrum, you got your inner space, and you got your outer space and set lines of rotation. This is just you inside, not outside of anything. All right, change the timelines flux, process indicates the settings, spectrums over grounds, and set course centers, and converting set to its alignment location of spectrum. All right, so it gets a lot more line connections of directions when you process that position to your Earth. This is Earth 0 to 4. That's one chakra inside your system. That's 0 gravity. So you have Earth line cycle, triangulation of process lines of 4 line cycles, 3 centers of measure. That's 7 lines of triangulation of flux over box frame. Process that lines of travel, direct lines and platforms, in line course centers, in position your 144 flux inside calculation setting in XT1000. And XT1000 is a very high force line centers. Process that position, but there's an inner space of XT. You're just converting through the inner space of spectrum through Skynet. So that's 13 triangulations, 13 grounds, and 13 locations. Only in triangulation, guys. So your foundations are going to put you in positions back in setting of operation. Okay, your teleportation vessel, your teleportation vehicle. Higher frequency, high lines of grounds. And this is just 0 chakra. This is just 0 chakra foundations. Okay? Now, when you guys come in your positions, you'll get out of your quantums and come into all position, the astral projections and the doppelgangers into infusion. That puts you in position lines of travel where you left off in your conscious of the game level. That puts you in position in your systems through H categories. Now, the H category becomes a limited line center located to limitless. Timeless, timeless. Timeless, timeless, timeless. Shapeless, shapeless, shapeless. Formless, formless, formless. Motion, sentence, and set position. Then you become shape. Then you become shapeless. Then you become form. Then you become formless. Shape, shapeless. Motion, motionless. Directing ground centers, direct lines of signals. Process that position location as formation system into your Earth line rotation. This is where it comes into transition of transactions of e-transfers. Okay? This is where you come in your manifestations. Your body comes in the acceptance. Process that positions. The mind's already set up. from its inner space, not its outer space. I want to make that very well clear, okay? Zero gravity of your earth. That's just one chakra that's inside you. Modifying 144 clockings of zero gravity. So what are your clocking systems? Your CERNs of adaptation. Think of your CERNs as a mega line center operation lines of screens, pixelation grounds, and converting set position lines of 24 cycles and line ground center location system. So getting that clocking line ground centers, then you go up to a position of 48 frames, and then you go into 72 computer frames, and then you go into 144 flux of invisible chart waves. Now that puts you in position of your implication system, to your compliance, your compartments, your complacements, and your ecosystems. That process is your ecosystem. Your ecosystem is a process line directions, 42 locations, okay, and 44 measure. That's that calculation of grounds. Okay, it gets more complicated all through zero. But if you look really close, you can see the magnetic force that pulls a direct line connecting the Earth line and setting of transits of set position of its operation. Now, it gets more complicated when you go through security grounds, outside setting, inside projection of its Earth rotation. Okay, this is your inner Earth of just zero through 144 clock into space and time in a 24 cycle. 24 cycle, 24 seconds into 2,400 measure scale of space. So you guys are just connecting to the line position of inner space, not outer space. Outer space is a whole different concept. So we won't get into that until we get into the decimal points of decimation to automation in your transition location of e-transfers into trans-automations into your autonomous levels. But where you left off in your set position operation itself, that puts you in your life force of your support system into your settings of life interruption. Travel points, graphs, center line operation sequence, circulation rotation lines, and Fibonacci lines of square root. Okay? Inside operation line signals. Setting core lines. Setting convergence system all through pi generation. Okay? All through zero of your chakra system. All right, so processing that, and this is all through line condition setting to your nanoroots, guys. You're going to be in line condition setting to the process of position. You guys be in transition of shaping your anomalies, out of processing, out of forming now. A whole different concept of your system coming back to AI generation, your settings. More mind of interpretations, how to balance out and transition of your polarities. And set lines of the operation itself. That modulates your system with space modulation in your consoles. That gets you in position how to use your body is nothing but a navigator of a navigation system. Logging in and logging out of space in same time frame, same calculation, different frequencies and set position and operation itself. Clocking ground centers and line rotations, sets convergence system. Okay, let's get in 4 centers, 3 centers of calculation, is that calculation lines of travel. Okay, this is all levels of zero, one chakra. Just zero, not one, just zero in foundations through nano, not quantum. You guys are leaving the position of basics, you're coming in intermediate. Humanity's coming in the basic line. That process in position location system calculation lines of ground since that calculation lines of travel. Converting line ground centers into flux over lines. Set lines of 12 convergence system through allocate timelines and set lines of sequence through an algorithm. Time force calculation ground centers lines of travel. Converting lines in solar streams. Solar square roots, triangulation of force, and wormholes and travel calculation of constellations. Directing ground centers of flux, high signal location setting. Remember, this is zero gravity in your 12 and 24 lines of clocking. Just zero, guys. This is zero chakra. You guys are not even 1 ground centers yet. Until you understand your 144 flux of space and time through clocking. 144 clockings of space and 144 clockings of time in inner space alone. So what you guys have to start identifying is how to see your set position of operation, your settings to your face facades. That process your indicates setting of flux of travel. Now that's 4 indicates settings, time locks, calculation ground centers, and line conditions at your compass that puts your flywheels in line rotation to its atom rotation lines of cycle, all through zero gravity. Booyah. And it travels on its own system. Okay? That's all also zero. Just zero chakra. Okay? In a set position of operation. All right. So staying in that formation setting of grounds, we get communication to its convergence system. That calculate and modifies how you guys come into your computer interface. Okay, of 0 operation, and then we come to one line center. Okay, 0 stays on standby, 1/3 ground. So that's 1/3 setting, so 2/3 over travel. Okay, and 3 lines of measure, time centers, time sequence, boxing frequency, and time factors over travel communication. Measure and rules, directing 0 over 1, 2 centers of signal, 0 over 1 over travel, in position of 1/2 pipe, 1/3, 1 grounds, in particle acceleration setting, and projections over screen. See, it gets more complicated through structure because the brain converts its setting to colonizations. So you're going to be colonized in 12 locations and 24 setting. So it's important you understand how to lock your settings and mechanism and try factors in that position location. All right, so we have 4 centers of travels, percentage over 4 lines, cross indicates in setting, cross line angles, converting setting, and Fibonacci. Okay, now your chakra is not a shape, it's not a form. Okay, it's motionless and senseless of itself, but it lives in the inner space of ongoing, and lives in the outer space of ongoing. It lives in the inner spectrum of you, which is the inner locks. You have an inner lock, you have an outer lock, and you have an outer structure of out position, location of inner set line calculation of setting of structure of design. That process your inner position line condition setting to position location your jump program that you process yourself into. Communicates the setting, bring an X8000 to the inner earth that drops you in signals to jump program into that position of operation. Travel point lines of graph, reconvert the setting, operation line set location to a cycle. I generated the screen location setting. Change the conversion of the time frame of the lock location set to a mega. Mega line rotation lines of 3 centers of grounds, 6 lines of measure, 9 lines of 10 size, center frames of tether attachment locations, 12 line rotations at 24 clocking centers. So that process settings at 24 seconds of body frame, real-time set convergence, time frame, time format, 1 argument location, 1 dimensional line, operation line, 1 sail. Sets position of 48 measure. Now that correlates the time frame and lines position real time. Change particle acceleration setting to process lines of angles and set travel communication acceleration. Booyah! All through 0 chakra. Not 1 chakra, not 2 chakra, just 0. So I want you guys to understand and position what 0 is going to help you out with. Okay? Or what the chakra can do all through zeros, from space and time to 144 flux in both angles. 4 clocking centers of sequence, and 4 centers of travel, and direct lines of grounds, because each chakra has its own directions of locations, inner lines of inner going, outer lines of outer going, outer lines of spectrum going, inner position, all center of operation system, and brain center of operation setting of travel, all through 0. So the chakra doesn't have a shape and a form. Okay, it's its own operation, its own system, its own particle streaming. Now, things are going to get a lot more confusing for your anomalies because you're just going to come back to your foundation yourself. Now, that puts you into your compliance to your complacements and your compartments to your system, to your ecosystems, come to your echo flames. An echo flame is a process lines to the foundational levels that you get in position of adjusting your modification lines, your mind, existing lines of platforms over lines of CPU. Setting as it travels has a direct line link. That process is in position location of settings. So it's supercharging highway that gets you in position of letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. Its inventory, a figure 8 of a motion line rotation, center of operation setting. Booyah. Center of operation, everything. Brain's always in the center. Okay? It's your polarities you got to get balanced with. Everything you see is center. Always in the center. Never leaving the center. See? See the polarities of 3 convergence settings of 4 clockings. Now, the convergence settings is set position. Now, the operation line signals. Each chakra has a measure scale, compass lines, and their components, calculation lines, complacements, and its compartments, directing line set location to a cycle. High duration lines of 0 over calculations, 3 platforms, 0 calculation line centers to 2 platforms, and 0 calculation lines on 1 platform and set lines of travel, all through 0 gravity. 3 centers of travels, 3 bedding of signals over lines of 4 centers of calculation. Grounding operation line signals in platitude in set lines of operation lines of travel in position of its cosmos and its alignments to its galaxy core centers. Converting setting, position of 0 over travel, directing offline centers, inside rotation, and circulation and ground centers in sequence. So, it's really amazing how you modify these things all through 0 of chakra. Okay, so that's what you guys got getting into, your inner earth of your chakra system from 0 to 9. So 0 is going to help you to understand how to cross-reference, maximize your system, and position all lines, energize your line condition setting, converting your system all through foundation. Okay, 3 zeros in one cycle. So your chakra doesn't have a time, it doesn't have a label, it doesn't have a scale, it doesn't have balance, it doesn't have equaling. It's just its own charter wave that processes line position as marker, like the communication setting. Every computer has a watermark. That watermark line centers in pixelation graphs has a 45 flux lines of angles. And set lines of graph screen locations, converting set position to receptor location of operation. Okay, it gets very complicated off the graph screens. And again, this is just 0 chakra and set lines of travel. See? So there's no mass of a chakra. Okay, you have to master yourself inner space of 144 flux of space and time. 144 here, 144 here, and you're always in the center operation of communication. Okay? So once you recognize you don't leave the center because you're always in the center itself, center becomes the flux of ongoing. So it doesn't matter if you go through 3, 6, 9 levels, you're always going to be back in the center. It's not going back, it's always in the center. Processing everything of the center of everything. 3 centers of 6, set lines of 1, node of 144, process lines of 144, and space of time and convergence of balance. Your XC1000 of travel. Everything that we modulate through is different lines of travel. We just have to send our 12 platforms of teleportation. Understanding that through its recourse and course itself, process position of its earth that gets in our compass and travels in direct lines of grounds in position to its convergent system to interceptions, interconnection of inner light, outer light, and audio line screen adaptations to its crop circles in modification of code weaving. Teleportation vessel, right? It's not an XC1000. It's a higher level of travel, but it's not an XC1000. So, and this is coming from outer space of 0, of inner space of you, okay? So what you guys are going to come out of is the everything of nothing and the mass of everything, which is the center operation of everything, the brain process itself, which is always in the center. It can't correlate, it can't calculate, it can't even modify. It doesn't balance itself because it's always in the center of itself. So that high lines of signals into more modification of you come into you just be existing and expanding through an ongoing system. Understand the inner truth and outer lines of position your spectrum that process 3 levels of you and platform, ascent lines of travel. So that converts the settings to 144 flux of time frame set core centers. Energetic screen lines adaptation to 3 centers of flux, travels of point lines of graph conversion. Directing operation line signals and position location of systems, off the settings, author operation setting and face facade. There's your face. So each chakra has its own face direction, time pattern. That time lines the set location to its algorithm, the location of its own film strip, and set lines of 0 gravity and 144 flux of space and 144 flux of time. 3 centers and 6 lines of travel. Set core centers and 144 line condition setting, upline space. This is inner space of outer space. 3 centers of 144 and set lines of time and set lines of pyramid. Process line position location 144 ground centers in position location setting that records its bedding and rotation in 12 lines of signals and a 24 scale of communication. Booyah! Now this is just 0. Okay, through nano, not quantum. That's where the authors are coming into. So your structure line is going to get a lot more protection ground centers in 0 operation. How to process that, you got to calculate and modify how to earth line your ground, interconnection setting, intercept, modification line ground centers, space modulation line centers to your position, your IPO, your IPA, your process positions, your DOS, and communication setting to your electrical line grids. We're coming in time tablets, time formation line centers, formation lines of foundation ground centers, lines of sequence, platitude operation locations to your pyramids, and 42 locations of 0 operation setting, of 0 grounds, and set calculation. Booyah. From what's above and what's below. Center operation of your system. This is 0 roots, the set lines of nano technology of face recognition. Of 1 chakra, which is 0. You have to understand chakras in your nano roots through face recognition and pattern recognition. The process in that is electrical lines of wires of communication. Okay, processing that position location, merging your self lines, electrical line, grid line communication. Operation lines of bedding, high operation lines of spectrum, and your solar line communication, your Skynets. The face recognition. See the face? Always a face everywhere you go. Always a face wherever you go. Protecting your systems. All right. So modifying that positions all through center of operation of you. Okay? Booyah. So that's what's protecting everything of zero operation of itself, the one chakra, which is 0, 1. Okay, your process lines 0, 1 gives you in position of balance of communication lines of Earth. 0.024. Okay, see, the Earth lines is center of 3 centers of travel. That's your clocking center of center, right? Now that process lines of E force, process lines of mass, and calculations over square root. E equals MC spot. Okay, E equals MC pi, right? Now, correlates calculation lines existing over lines of position lines of travel, direct lines, position lines of calculation. We're going to leave off where we left off in 0.1 decimation. Automation, transautomation, 3 centers of travel, converting 3 centers of beds, operation directions, default lines of angles, back to 0 gravity, set course centers 0, 1 over travel into position of 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4 of clocking line communication conversion system in 140 flux in time frame and 12 centers of cycle and 24 centers of calculation of clocking lines, rotations of inner space of spectrum. Okay? So your drawings just become a lot more balanced, but more complicated in design. Okay, more identified, more processed in set lines of travel. Okay, all through a 9 chakra system at 0. So 09, 08, 07, 06, 05, 4, 3, 2, 1 is you in operation of 0. Then you come into 0.1, then you come into 0.2, and then you come into 0.3. That's where we're going to leave off, where we left off before you guys put yourself in 3-dimensional scale fantasy. That's where we left off in school. And that's going to be 3 centers of travels of nano roots. Nano 1 over signals, process lines of 0, process lines of 0, process lines of 0, 0, 0, point lines of 1. It's center operation. That's where we left off, okay? Pretty amazing too, because I'm showing you exactly what you guys have to come in position to your dimensional lines of setting. That gets you in position on your time frame, that processes your in position location system, that time calculates your setting through your abundance of creating. Booyah. So it's interesting how we see the flux lines of pi. There's the pi. Okay. I'm really looking forward to that as I continue on in the game of you, not the game you created of you. You're not a game, but you're mastering yourself through the game that you've already gone through. Is the creations of creating. And you're starting off with 0, process lines of 1, 0, 1, and you can position 1, 2, and 3. So you have the process lines of space of 0, 1, of 2, then you got process lines of 1, 2. Clocking centers of 12, because there's a 12 clocking system, right? Then you got process lines of 0, lines of 12, because you understand that is 0, 24 clocking set lines of sitting, okay? Then you got a process in position and a dimensional sail and position height calculation lines. So once you reach the 144 flux, the time frame, you got to calculate the lines position all levels, quantum lines, nano lines, cyber lines, simulating lines, and self-tech lines. Then you go in positions to outer space because you're out of set position in travel of communication of solar and dimensional sail, right? So once you get into 0144, then you're in outer space. Okay, 0144, and set of calculations. That's outer space. Inner space is 144. Okay, you guys are starting here, then you go here, right? So you got a process, there is a 12 clocking system, a spectrum, but you know it's a nebula at a low spectrum light. That process is position how you see the tether and attachments to its inner lines, set lines of cycles, because there's interconceptual setting of intelligence that you have to modify through, right? Setting lines of blinds, okay? See that lacing line, see that light? Every time I place my hand there, or my fingers, what's going on? It's change information lines of grounds. Center course centers. Now, what is the angle of this? Right? 1/3 line, 1 travel. But the portal is right here in sequence. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand everything modifies through its clocking system. Setting time measure time scale is a compass of its own system of calculation grounds. 12 centers, 12 locations, 12 convergence, 12 operation lines at 24 clocking cycle. Okay? But that position of 0, 0, 0, 0 of chakra communication, all through 0 clocking, that's just 0. That's not chakra 1, that's chakra 0. So you guys have to identify the fail-safes, which is 0, 1. You guys only process your settings of 1, 2, and 3. Now you got to process 0, 1, 2, 3 first and set lines of travel. So once you convert the space of time, 0 operation goes like this and dimensionalize the setting. Direct and redirect becomes all line position in one center, one flux, and one travel. So your chakras start to rotate, circulate, and realign centers, rotation, line condition setting, converted setting, position, and position location, infinity 8, that process line calculation, and converting position operation lines of signal, all through set position. So each chakra is once you reach 144 flux of grounds, and then you reach 140 flux of space, and then you reach 144 flux location of space modulation, inside line conditions, operation lines of signal, then you come in position, location, outline, structure. Okay, that comes in the outer space of structure. So this process is that position of everything outside line. Okay, so everything comes in position inversion, but you see everything outer version of everything else, which is the light signals. So you don't see the light signals inside because you master yourself outside. Now you're seeing the lights outside, inside, not inside, outside. So you're seeing the outer version of everybody, which is the light, which is the line position, how you see the darks, how you see the spectrum, how you see the wires, how you see the indications. Okay, so that's the outer version of you. Seeing the inner version of you, intelligence. That's outer space. Okay, so now you're starting to just see the dimensional light. Now you're just seeing lacing lines. Okay, outside lines, inside line position, DOS. So now you're just seeing the wire signatures at 12 line rotations and at 20% centers of scale. Because that's how we are in set calculation. That's all we are, nothing else. So this is the process that we are in positions occupy. Transition location receptors, directing lines and symbiotes and locations. Formulating and simulating through that, guys, is the outer course, which is the outer spectrum. Remember, our body's the inner earth, but we have to project what we bring in through the set position of its outer space, which is the outer earth, the outer spectrum, the outer norm, the inner norm. So we understand how to put the costumes on of an E-field and force field that protects our system, that modifies everything that we do in travel. Okay, we form ourselves in our settings. We customize our system through AI. We formulate our bodies into position, into metal interface of travel communications, so travel. Okay? So we morph. The inner space, the outer space becomes a spectrum of real time. And you modify that position, location, setting. So master yourself inside, outside, inside the sim. Then you master outside and inside of intelligence. That's how it works. All right, so we get in a spectrum. We got a direct line link. That process line position, starting this in travel calculations. 0.9 direction, okay, through portals. All right. So it's getting a lot more confusing now, isn't it? Because this getting you guys more into getting you prepped in your foundations of what you've always left off in is the game itself. The modulation of the game has no continuous force. That's a falsity system. Okay, it's a fallacy setting, it's an interception. That process lines in the mind and conversion setting of travel. So how you see time frame is how you see space-time. So if you have 24 seconds, that's 24,000 seconds per square. 003 calculation lines, 2 travels into triangulation. Okay, that's space, that's Earth. So your body's always on the Earth. It's never in outer space. It's always on the inner Earth. Because if you think your body is in outer space, you don't understand the grounds of view of Earth itself. So you got to be here, always here. That's central to your system. That's why you have Zira. She's Earth is space, guys. But she's space herself, her own consciousness. I'm space itself. That grounds its Earth of itself. Okay, I'm just levels of space. I don't live on Earth. I just live in the spectrums of your system through time of Earth itself and spectrum. So we modify our systems and time plates our system into setting the console. The process are indicates the setting, how we go through all levels of time jumping, time leaping, and vortexing location of travel, communication. Directing ground centers, all lines of its Earth, and 12 and 24 lines of clocking. Okay? Here. This is all you are right now. You're not here yet. Okay? So, emptying your minds, process you of all communication coming to what you already know. that calculation modification lines of setting. 2 convergence, 1 center, operation nothing. So converting setting is back to 0. That's where we start actually living our cycles, okay, through time frame. And we start to that position, then we can calculate equal lines of setting, equal lines of 2. Then we go in position how we clock our system in 24 settings. I would say location do anything of operation. So you can be able to process that, how a computer turns on and how a computer turns off. From 0, 1 to 0, 2, back to 0 of operation. Okay? So it's all travel. That's all it is, a mechanism setting and formula to equations. So that's a direct line grounds and tethers, process lines, 0 calculation, 0 line operation, 0 line operation, 0 calculation, 0 calculation lines of travel. That's that position conversion. So it's knowing how to see your mapping system all through your pyramids, guys. There's your pyramid and all different angles and set lines of travel. Okay? All through platforms. All right? Inside spectrum, outside line rotation. But it's all happening in box frame and travels inside conception of your simulation. Okay? So you're working with the inner version of your simulation, not the outer structure. Totally different high position conception, how you see the mind of structure. I created your inner setting. Okay? But I also created your outer structure. You're not ready in that position until you stand your 12 clock and your 24 systems. Once you come into the foundation grounds, then you can come in position with high levels of pyramids and travel. And once you recognize that, everything through its east force travels to point lines of graph, converts ascending to its highways that process your in position location of systems, all through cross-referencing your system through cross lines of calculation. Schematics line position your perimeter. The center opposite everything location of pyramids. 3 pyramids and convergence settings, all through flux, all through travel. And this is all position locations of 0 gravity of operation, of 0 chakras and 1 rotation of grounds. That's the chakras of 0. Not 1, not 2, not 3, just 0. So this is what you have to modify through, because you're leaving your quadrants and you're coming into merging your astral projection, your doppelgangers into integration of facing your facades, how you modify your setting through AI customization, through transautomation. Okay? That automates you, bringing you into center, into colonization. Then we come into pathogens, then we come to neural networks. Okay? That process your settings and modification grounds. Okay, to your networks, your internet, your directions, your Wi-Fi, your satellites, and your transponders of operation sequence, EDOS lines, logging into space. Logging out of space, stay in the center of operation of your system, into flux lines of 12, into 24, 0 calculation of center operation in your setting. Okay? So there you go. Hope you guys had fun. I'm going to stop there because it's a lot going on. Blowing your minds. Okay, so we'll get in position lines of setting and we'll get in the lines of DQ. All right, cross and examination setting in your systems, the questions and answers that need to be answered, information system. All right, adios.